some happenstance. It's not just by circumstance that you have the children you have. You have them so that you, as parents, can bring them closer to Christ. It's not just another choice. It defines us. It defines our family. It defines our married love. Without Christ, it doesn't make sense. Marriage without Christ, family without Christ, when push comes to shove, doesn't make sense. Without them, they lose their weight. They lose their weight, and it becomes just another choice. So you don't have to choose to get married. You don't have to. You can just be with another person. You can just be with another person forever, because it's not being intentional. It's not being intentional. So, challenges. I don't have time, because you have all these choices. I don't have time to live my faith. It's difficult. I don't have time to learn more about my faith. Demands of children's sports schedules. The drawback of organized sports. I was having a conversation right before this happened, particularly about this. And I'm growing in my, I shouldn't say dissent, but dislike of organized sports. Everything has to be organized. You can't just have a fun game with friends. And I love sports. I love playing sports. And I love it. But where are the games where you can just play with friends? It's now all organized. It's taken out of the children's hands. And where is it put? It's put into the adults' hands. It's put into the adults' hands. Not the children's hands. Not the children's. So you're not allowing the children to be children. You're trying to make them into something they're not in a lot of ways by organizing. We just had, here's an example. We just had, I won't name the place, but at another parish, they were having a basketball game. And things went south. I think it was 5th or 6th graders. Things went south. Anyway, it turned out that someone was ejected from the game. Someone was kicked out of the arena. And the referees were afraid to walk back to their cars, so much so that they called the police to get escorted to their cars. Now that's just sick. That's just sick. And this same parish had a game here the next day. And so we heard about it, and we wouldn't let this person in the building. The administrators from that parish, to their credit, came over and wouldn't let this person in the building. That's a sick mentality. It's a sick mentality that we need to change. That we really need to change. Sports have become way too serious. And I always like to ask how many children, many of all the children who have graduated from SJV, how many of them have ever become a professional athlete? Does anyone know of one? No. So we push our kids, especially in order, and it's not just us as parents. It's the society. It's the society. So we push our kids, and acting as if it's a career, it might be a career for them, when there's this tiniest chance that it never will be. Most of them won't even get a scholarship in college. You know, so the point being is we take it way too seriously, and we really have to rethink that. We have to rethink it as a parish, but we especially have to rethink it as a society. Demands of children's social schedules. You're their driver. You've got to take them everywhere. So it becomes difficult for you to live out your faith, because now you're taking your kids here, there, and everywhere, whereas I think in another context and time and place, there was more of a social gathering in the neighborhood. So now you have to take them around. And then we have to always ask the question, do we feel comfortable in our lives? How many of us feel comfortable? I do. Yeah. Do we feel, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Do we feel comfortable in our lives? The question then that would prompt us then to ask that is, are we really living our faith? if we're comfortable in our lives, because our faith would prompt us to live lives that may be a little bit uncomfortable. That may be a little bit uncomfortable. We have to stretch ourselves. We have to do what's not comfortable. So what's comfortable? These things are comfortable. Saying I don't have time. Saying I need to take my kids to the sports stuff. I need to drive my kids around to their summer party or whatever. And those are all good things. These aren't bad things, okay? These are good things here. But the problem is they're replaced with the best gift we have. And that's our faith. And that's our faith. So reconfiguring how we live our life. So now our faith is first. Above all. Above all we do. Above all we do. So are we comfortable? Are we comfortable in our lives? And I can honestly say I am. And that worries me in some ways. We have to try and let our faith push us. Let our faith push us. It will, if we're truly living it. It will. So, at the end of the day, faith and family, a balancing act. The answer is no. Actually, it's not a balancing act. It's not a balancing act. Faith and family must go hand in hand. The faith, how we hand on the faith, is specifically done in the family. It's specifically done in the family. So it's not a matter of keeping your balls in the air and juggling and saying, one of those balls is faith. No. We have our faith. We live our faith. And then we see if we have time for other things. That would make us feel uncomfortable. That would make us feel uncomfortable. All of us. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Trying to put our faith above everything else we do. And do we take the time to pray? Do we take the time to pray with our kids? And I don't mean just at meals, but at other times. Do we, when we're in the car, I remember as a kid, we'd say the rosary. I didn't like it. I couldn't stand it. We'd turn off the music, and I'd be like, come on, I want to listen to the music. Well, that's part and parcel of who we are. Something like that. Or doing, my family would do holy hours at church. We'd take time, probably maybe once a month. My parents tried to do it once a week. That was difficult. But, or just taking a few minutes before or after Mass to pray with your children quietly to the Lord. And realize that to help them build a relationship with Christ. We talk about sports a lot. And if you want to be good at sports, right, what do you have to do? You have to practice. You have to practice. And if we go back a few slides, there's all those choices. And we fill our life with all those choices. And we give our energy and time to all those things. How much energy and time do we give to our faith in comparison? Probably very little. Probably very little. John Thompson can back me up on this. This is a great analogy that he loves, and I think it's very good. But in general, how do you do this, John? So if you spend 10 minutes a day in the bathroom, right?
If you live 100 years.
And you live 100 years, how many hours is that of your life do you spend going to the bathroom?
This is sitting on the toilet, and it's about 6,000 hours.
About 6,000 hours during your lifetime.
A 100-year lifespan.
Let's say you live 100 years.
Yes.
You're going to spend about 6,000 hours on the can, as they say.
On the toilet.
And then, now if you go to Mass every Sunday and every Holy Day,
right.
How many hours? So about 1 hour. How many hours would you spend doing that?
5,800.
5,800.
Yes.
So, essentially, if you live 100 years and you go to Mass every Sunday and every Holy Day, you would spend less time doing that than going to the bathroom. And it's just a good point to realize that even some of the the easiest things, that we think of, that's doing the bare minimum. We have to try and do more. We have to try and do more. And that's how we'll, God willing, help our children live the faith. Live our faith, which is again, the most important gift that we have been given. Living family life needs to be rethought. We need to be intentional about it. It can't just be, again, something else we've done. Our family life, the fabric has to be rethought. We can't just be comfortable in the way we've been living anymore. We have to ask ourselves, what are the gods in our family? What do we worship in some ways instead of God? And this is also true for our own lives. We also have to ask that personally. But as a family, what are the things we worry about more in our family than we do about our faith, than we do about our religion? Again, are we comfortable in life? There's a good chance if we're comfortable not pushing self in our faith. When we are comfortable, we're going along with secular society. We're just doing what everyone else does. We're doing what everyone else does. And we're getting to a point in our life where we have to be much more intentional about it. Gone are the days, and maybe our parents lived in this, grandparents certainly, where you just grew up in a Catholic, we would call it Catholic ghettos, where everyone was Catholic. Everyone was Catholic, and that's just what you did. Gone are those days. So, excuse me, now your kids are going to have friends who aren't Catholic, and that's fine. That's great. But they have to know why they're Catholic. If they have kids saying, well, I'm doing this, that, and the next thing, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really cool, and they don't know why they shouldn't be doing it, then they're going to do it. Then they're going to do it. It's the same for our own lives. If we don't know why we shouldn't be doing something, we're going to, and it looks fun and it's cool, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So we have to try and be, it's always a difficult balance. We don't want to remove ourselves from society, but we certainly, especially in our society, want to be, the best term, this is, Christ was countercultural. We don't want to just be comfortable living the lives we live, going along with the culture. We want to say, no, wait a minute, how can we shape our lives according to our faith and not according to what society dictates? I said this before, offering direction to children. That there's that clip that I showed from Modern Family where Father Phil is the good guy, right? He's trying to sympathize with his eldest daughter and be the good guy. You know, sometimes you're going to do that. Okay, that was obviously. I'm using that to make a point. But the point is, there has to be a direction. There has to be a direction. So, and this may sound a little crazy, but what do they watch? What do they watch on TV? And for those of you who have children who are teenagers, one of the top 10 popular shows that teenagers watch is South Park. Now I don't know if you've watched South Park, but I've hardly seen seconds of it. But it's horrible. It's horrible. But it's one of the top 10 most popular TV shows among teenagers. That's what South Park is. So, what do they watch? What do they watch? And certainly, the thing is, what do they watch with their friends? Again, it can't be gone are the days when we lived in this Catholic ghetto, right? And if you went over to your next door neighbor's house, they were Catholic, and so they wouldn't watch bad TV. Not only that, there wasn't anything even close to South Park back then. So, what do they watch? What are they seeing? What are they picking up from TV? What do they listen to? What do they listen to? If we listen to some of the music today, if we listen to some of the music today, now some of it can be very catchy. I won't deny that. You know, that's their idol. That's their idol for, you know, teenagers, even younger. Do you really want your teenager emulating her? What about your teenager emulating Mary? The virtues of Mary, the purity of Mary, the most beautiful woman ever to live. Instead, they're looking at this. One more brief example of I had a conversation with someone, and now, oh, my phone isn't working. Now there's a very popular song going around now, sung by Meghan Trainor, All About That Bass. It's a catchy tune. Many of you may have heard it, okay? And it begins because, you know, I'm all about that bass. And then the lyrics go like this. Yes, it's pretty clear. I ain't no size 2, but I can shake it like I'm supposed to do, because I got that boom boom that all the boys chase, and all the right junk in all the right places. I see the magazines working that Photoshop. We know that edit ain't real. Come on now, make it stop. If you got beauty, beauty, just raise them up, because every inch of you is perfect from the bottom to the top. Anyway, and it goes on.
Sing it.
Yeah. I'll pass. Thanks, no round. And I was talking with someone about this, a good Catholic, and she said, well, it's a good song. It's a good song because it makes women feel comfortable with themselves outside of if they're not perfect. And I said, yes, but what does it make them desirable for? Sex. That's it. That's it. That's all that song is about. Making themselves desirable as an object for something else. So that's what your kids are listening to. As she says in the song, I shake it like I'm supposed to do. Like that's what she's supposed to do. Like that's what she needs to do as a woman. There's no dignity in that. There's no dignity at all in that. So what do our kids watch? What do they listen to? And still, it might be maybe a catchy song, but we have to think, who are their friends? This is huge. This is really important. And I mean, as I said, doesn't mean that they can't have friends that are, you know, not faith-filled people, you know, that aren't secular people. But you've got to watch who their friends are too. And this stuff right here, this type of parenting isn't as popular now, because you've got to affirm children, and it's okay that they do these things, and they have to. Here's another line: they have to experience life. Well, again, if they're a little kid and they're reaching towards a hot stove, are you going to let them do it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You've got to give them direction. We've got to give them direction. Who are their friends? And this is particularly true. And the thing is, you can teach them to choose good friends. This is particularly true in college. That's when the vast majority of kids stop living their faith, is in college, because they've left home. They don't have anyone to tell them and wake them up and make them go to Mass anymore, so they just stop. If they have friends, though, who are faith-filled in college and can keep each other accountable for going to Mass and living their faith, they'll live it for the rest of their lives. They'll live it for the rest of their lives. So this becomes more important, particularly in college. And so we have to teach them to choose wisely. To choose wisely. The choice is becoming clearer. Do we choose Christ and make room for Him in our family, or do we choose society? The choice is becoming clearer. As society moves away from Christ and moves away from religion, how many people have said this? I've heard this a lot. Well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Again, if I've heard that once, I've heard it a million times. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Well, that just means you can do whatever the heck you want and still say that you're faith-filled. That's literal. That's what they're saying. They're making an excuse. They're trying to be faith-filled in some ways without having their faith change their life or change how they live. Our faith specifically impels us to be uncomfortable, impels us to live in a way that may not be comfortable with society. And society may not be comfortable with it. Society may not be comfortable with it. I'll leave you with this quote from Fulton Sheen. A religion that doesn't interfere with the secular order will soon discover that the secular order will not refrain from interfering with it. Point being is we have to stand up for what we believe in. We have to, in some ways, I guess, set ourselves apart. It doesn't mean we have to push people away. It doesn't mean we have to be uppity or standoffish. Absolutely not. But we have to stand apart in the sense that we live our faith. That we live our faith, because it's becoming less and less popular, if you will. To live your faith is quickly becoming an anomaly. I'm of the opinion that our church will grow smaller and smaller. It will grow smaller and smaller as our society becomes more secular. As we grow further from Christ, it will be. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. The question is, we have to ask ourselves, are we going to let it? Are we going to let it? Or are we going to try and change, transform our lives into Christ and change our family lives? So thank you all for coming. God bless you and what you do. I think it's becoming more and more difficult to raise a family in our society. And I appreciate what you all do for the church and the fact that you are trying to raise your children in the faith. It's of the greatest importance. It's of the greatest importance. And if we're going to turn things around, we have to really begin with ourselves. If we're ever going to change the way society looks at faith, at religion, we have to look first at how we look at faith, how we look at religion. How are we living it? How are we not? What are the, quote, if you will, gods in our life, and how do we get rid of them and center our family around the one God, the true God, the one who has given us the great gift of his faith, the great gift of marriage, the great gift of family. So God bless you all and have a good night. Are there any questions? I meant to say, too, during the time, if you have any questions about what I'm saying, please raise your hand. Kind of a little late for that. There's a few minutes left for questions, though.
This is more not a question. I think the greatest challenge to keeping our kids in the Catholic Church is not so much secular pressure, but evangelical faiths. Because they see more of a show, entertainment,
Yep.
that kind of can. I approach the subject about trying to do a little bit more to, my daughter, let's talk about St. Thomas. She goes to that 9 o'clock,
Yep.
has chance mass. So that's awesome. Why can't we do that here?
Mm-hmm.
Kids love it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that we need help with, bring our stuff to faith too by making the mass more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess